Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So this is my part 2 of exposure of white supremacist organizations. Now this one is going to be pretty fast, I think, but I just want to give you the information about a group, and so we're going to get right into it because I have to hurry up and do something fast. This group's going to be a special interest to a lot of you brothers and sisters out there, and here's the reason why. This is the group. This is probably basically the main group that Donald Trump and his likes gets their information from. This is called the Council of Conservative Citizens. All right. And here's some of the things that this group is about. It really is a wide organization. It is composed of various things, but I'm gonna read a few things that this group stands for. One thing it's against is race mixing, of course. I myself have, I guess, a little type of I myself have that type of understanding. So they stand for a whole lot, saying more than just that. And that is the problem that I have with this group. It's about actually like any other white supremacist group out there. But we're gonna go ahead and see some other things they stand for, and you'll understand in a second why this group actually is the type of thing that Trump's about. Now, you see right here, it says 2007. All right, so we into the 2000s about this group. It ain't no 1914, but they've been around for a long time, but they've reshaped and reformed themselves. So it says, we believe the United States is a European country and that America is part of the European people. We therefore oppose massive immigration of non-European and non-Western peoples into the United States that threatens to transform our nation into a non-European majority in our lifetime. We believe that illegal immigration must be stopped, if necessary, by military force and placing troops on our national borders. The illegal aliens must be returned to their own countries, and that legal immigration must be severely restricted or halted through appropriate changes in our laws and policies. And we already know what Donald Trump is doing, right? Okay. We also oppose all efforts to mix the races of mankind, to promote non-white races over European American people through so-called affirmative action and similar measures to destroy or denigrate the European American heritage, including the heritage of the Southern people, and to force the integration of the races. Statement of Principles, Citizens Informer, 2007. Okay, so we don't need to go on about the immigration thing. We know that they're against that. Notice that they talk about the change in the laws, and also one thing they mentioned was so-called, we also oppose all efforts, hold on, yep, you know that, to promote non-white races over European American people, which basically means when they say that, they oppose where is it at? To promote non-white races over European American people through so-called affirmative action and similar measures to destroy or denigrate the European American heritage. That means they don't want no other race over them in this country on all levels. All right. So now you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, big deal. That's just one of them little fringe, white supremacist groups. Here's the problem. And you're looking at these people right here. You're thinking, okay, this is the information they give on these guys, and look how they got them looking. And you're thinking them guys ain't gonna do nothing in our society. I mean, these are backwoods people, right? So you're thinking nothing about it. But this is an old picture, and this ain't even scratching the surface as to the influence this group has, because that's an old one. You see that name, Council of Conservative Citizens? Let's see what they say. The Council of Conservative Citizens, CCC, is a modern reincarnation of the old White Citizens Council. So this is actually the council that was in power during the 60s, during the 50s, during the 1930s, during the 1920s. These are the old ones that was in power during all them times when you hear about the lynchings and the stuff, it was these groups that was in control and was in power. 1950s, 1960s, the battle of school disintegration in the South created, now remember, this is the trick part, created in 1985 from the mailing list of predecessor organizations. The CCC has evolved into a cruelly white supremacist group. They was already white supremacists. But so what they're saying here is this old group that existed, and they existed before this actually, they're lying about this. I could prove that later. They existed before the 1950s and 1960s, but they was alive then. All right, they was battling this during the time of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They the ones that, you know what I'm saying, basically was made to, in a sort of way, bow down. In 1985, created in 1985, how they created in 1985, 85, if they was in 1950 and 1960s. Right? So what they actually mean is they were recreated in 1985. Okay, then you had another statistic that said that they were recreated in 1992. All right, so we're gonna go up here, but this really don't tell you much, but I did a little bit of research. And so first, you know, I went to Wikipedia. I'm gonna, you know what, no, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and go into some things that they propagate nowadays, because this is very important. You see, what the statistics that Donald Trump to be saying, and as well as what all other white supremacists be saying when they're trying to sound all intellectual and rational and things of that nature, it's this group that they're getting their information from. And when I say information, this is what I mean. Okay, now you see this name right here, America Renaissance. This group is connected to them. Right? This is like their new branch. It started in St. Louis. So I'm going to go back to this real quick. I want you to see something. According to its supporters, let's see. The Council of Conservative Citizens opposes globalism, multiculturalism, racism against whites, and intrusive federal government. Of course, now we're gonna find out that they a bunch of liars. The group says its key role is in reporting racial overtones of violence against whites, both in the United States and elsewhere. An April 2005 photo essay of the CEO of CC website claimed that the images of decapitated, burnt, and mangled bodies of whites are victims of black violence in South Africa. The website closes with the statement that someday American whites will be a minority and will be subject to the same form of violence. Okay. Here's what I want to find real quick. Okay, you see there. Okay, well, we know that. So they go way back. Here's what the mass murderer Dylan Roof. So let's see this. Okay, because this gets into your anti-Islam too. This gets into and I'm gonna do. I think the next one I'm gonna do on this specific person. Her name is Bridget Gabriel. You know that one lady. She's like an Arab Lebanese girl, and she has all these conservatives around her. She's anti-Islam, and she gives a lot of speeches and stuff. Yeah, she's part of these type of groups, right? So although she's a Lebanese, she's part of white supremacist groups, and they're more about introducing books and having senators, and I'm gonna show you in a second, because this is very important. This is your Trump. Okay, watch this. Columnist, and you probably already know people like columnist Ann Coulter. You know what Ann Coulter is, right? Has defended the group against charges of racism, stating on the basis of viewing of the website that there is no evidence that the COCC supports segregation. Coulter and Pat Buchanan are listed as being recommended columnists on the organization's official site. Okay, so you're getting these people that are always on the news that you see be making these reports. Pat Buchanan and Ann Coulter. All right, that's not it. Where is? I really need to find this because this is important. It's important. Platform. Okay, hold on. Bear with me for a second. Okay. Okay. Here we go. This is the part I want to. Yes, this is the part I want to really show you. Okay, because this is where you get into your federal government. And you get into your senators and your politicians, and you know supposedly we're not racist no more type politicians, right? This is your Donald Trump type people. Now let's look at this. Council of Conservative Citizens. This is your Donald Trump people. This is the Donald Trump type of white supremacist group, right? This is not your regular little back trap. They got the connections. So look, those of you in Atlanta, you might want to do some more research on them and start. If you're a Muslim brother, or sisters, even if you're Christian and you over there in Atlanta, you want to might want to start doing some preaching or some kupas up in the masjid about them, because they close to you, although they're everywhere. They were found in Atlanta. 1988, supposedly. Now, I just showed you the dates, 1950 and 1960, right? This is a reform of it. So they sprang up again in 1988, but they was around in the 1950s and the 1960s and before that. So for a while, they got beat back, but they formed themselves. So let's see who are the people that are involved in this. So they reformed, I'm going to say reformed in 1988. Atlanta, Georgia, then relocated to St. Louis, Missouri. The COSCC was formed by white supremacists, including, watch this, former members of the Citizens Council of America, or White Citizens Council of America. At one time they was called. Sometimes, okay, let's skip that. Is my thing blurry? Okay. All right. Now you see that. Let's get into some government stuff, right? Because I'm tired of this. Maddox. Let's see who's part of these things. 1960, 1970. Lester. Hold on. Put my phone close. Lester. Maddox, former governor of Georgia, was a charter member. Gordon Lee Bohm, a retired personal injury lawyer, was CEO until he died in March 2015. 2015. Okay? So you going back to the 1950s and you're going back to the 1960s, reformed in the 1988. Okay? They all the way up to the 2015, a member of them. So this existed before Donald Trump. They've been hiding this. They got the information out there. There's only a few people that have the information, but a lot of us don't have the information, right? So because we're getting into white supremacy, but we're getting into government white supremacy. When we talk about the system, this right here is the systemized white supremacy, racism that we're talking about now, right? Look at this. Earl P. Holt of Longview, Texas, is the president. Leonore Wilson, a former Alabama state committeeman for both the Republican and Democratic parties. So we're talking about Republicans and we talk about Democrats. Join at the hips. Sits on the COSCC executive board. Bill Lord, Sir Carroll County Coroner, former head of the Carroll Academy School Board, also sits of the executive board. Do you see that? You see this? These are your senators. These are your mayors. White supremacists. Democrat, Republican. You know, the ones that talk, some of them talk about they're not about racism. But if you're not about racism, I'm going to get into some of their material. I'm going to show you You know, all this statistic thing that they be doing about the crime rates of blacks, the crime rates of whites compared to the crime rates of Asians. You know, them little statistics that you be hearing about on your TV. You know, even the ones that want to tell you the percentage of blacks that exist in this country, the percentage of whites that exist in this country. These people are liars. These Shiites are liars. And the white supremacists. And they've been doing the cloak and dagger. You see, in the 1960s, the reason why they had all this little reform stuff is because we was getting too rowdy for them. We was economically putting a drain on them. We was politically putting a hurting on them. And every single time we start putting a hurting on them like that, they always reshape, they always shift shape, they always form and come different, just like gens do. You know, ship shifting. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. So this is the same group as the past. They're real good for articles too, scientific articles. So if you're into science, if you're into journals, if you're into articles, you know, you're an intellect, and you start reading these statistics and stuff like that, it's these people right here. You might want to be careful what you believe. Just because they dressed up in a suit, or they talk good English, or they're not yelling expletives, or they're not talking bad language, they're not saying the N word. You know, they're real, you know, they're politicians. They look all nice on the TV. Okay. Look at that. That's their old name. See, they changed it. White Citizens Councils. Those are the very ones who was doing the little lynchings and your mobs and all type of stuff like that. They didn't want blacks to have nothing. So it says, several conservative politicians distance themselves, now watch this, from the organization. You know, that's a tactic, right? That's like a group called Volks Front. When they started seeing this new revival of the RBG organizations, and I'm including those who are Muslims and those who are not Muslims, when they started seeing us grow in around, what was that? 2000, I mean, we really started growing really big around 2010. You know, it was before that, but it wasn't headline news, and you heard maybe a couple rap songs, or people that may have grew up around it in their cities knew about it. That was basically about it. You know, but as far as it being like spreading in the media and stuff like that, that went until, you know, like towards 2010 it started picking up. But this other group called Volks Front, which is a white group and had chapters in Europe, they actually disbanded just recently in 2014. They all of a sudden just disappeared all over the United States and Europe. They just shut down office supposedly. But we know what that is. They went into underground hiding. You know, they went unofficial. That's all it is. And it's the same thing with this group. They was in the 1950s and 1960s and even 1920s. And, you know, they went underground. Conservative politicians, like I say right here, conservative politicians distance themselves from the organization. That's just strategy, okay? Let's look at who supposedly distance themselves, so we know who they really is in the cloak and dagger game that they trying to play, like somebody stupid. One such politician, Bob Barr, who had spoken at the COCC function, saying he found the group's racial views to be repugnant and did not realize the nature of the group, which he agreed to speak at the group's meeting. Hold on. So let me get this right. They invited you to speak at their convention, at their group. You know, they didn't know who they was inviting, and you didn't know about them. They actually reached out and invited you to speak at their group. But you mean to tell me what you gonna speak on does not agree with that group's platform? That don't make no sense. How is a group gonna reach out to you? That's like me right now, right? Let's say today the new Black Panther Party, or you know, Black Writers Liberation Party, or you know, somebody out there that's more of black, has a black stance, reaches out to me and says, hey brother, we would like for you to come over and give a speech, you know what I'm saying, or we would like for you to we would like for you to give us a presentation, right? Now, How am I gonna come out? How am I gonna be invited to their platform? But walaikum assalam rahmatullah to Sister Khadija Ali. How am I gonna be invited to their platform? And why would they reach out to me on their platform if I don't have some type of an agreement of their beliefs? You see, movements and organizations do not reach out to you unless you have some type of agreement with their platform. Right? That's like a brother, that's just ridiculous. But that's what they do in front of the cameras, That's what they do in front of the cameras. And you got to realize something about people like this. These are government people. So they understand the concept of profiling. You know how the profiling that they do? They write it down, a profile, which you're prone to do, right? So they know how to throw out there to the public an opposite profile of who they really are. They'll give you an opposite profile of who they really are to the news media, and then they broadcast that to you. And the first thing that they need to do in order to throw out there an opposite profile is to get media coverage on building a profile. So the first thing they need to do in order to seem like they're reformed, or they're not really about that, is they need to distance themselves from an organization. But that organization done already told them what they expect from them and want from them. You see? So behind the scenes, they make the deal, but in the public, they say something different. So that's all that is. Nobody's fooled by that. We gonna go ahead and expose and put these names out there to our people, so you guys can dig their names up and start doing further research on these individuals who are, let me put it there, both Republican and Democrat, okay, parties. We've been trusting these too long. They hijacked the Republican Party from us because blacks originally were Republicans. In 1960s, we switched to Democrat Party, right? And the only reason why that happened is because they started speaking they started acting like they switched up for black civil rights. Okay? That's the only reason why people started switching over to that. And they had taken over the Republican Party. So both of these parties, though, have always had a section that have always been against our interests. Remember, these is old heads who turn into new heads who reshape their concepts. Well, not their concepts, but put on a different display to the public, like this guy right here. This is where we was at. Like one politician named Bob Barr, who has spoken at CC functions, saying he found the group's racial views to be repugnant and did not realize the nature of the group. Now, when he agreed to speak at the group's meeting, Barr gave the keynote Barr gave the keynote speech at its 1998 national convention. Now hold on. How do you give a keynote speech at a national convention and you not agree with that group's racial views and say it's repugnant? That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense at all. Right? You gave the whole speech, but then you're going to go on to say you don't agree with the racial views. You don't agree with the racial views of the group. It's repugnant. Man, who you guys trying to fool, man? It's 2017. Y'all should have just not even try to bring this stuff back. Okay? Because this is the reason why they were doing this. Look at this. It tells you right there. In later years, the additional media articles on the involvement of other politicians with the CC attempted to force a distinct denunciation on their association with the organization. That's the only reason why these people came out and say they were not part of it, is because it became known. Names started coming out. So they started saying, oh, no, we're not part of that organization. Let's look at some of the people. For instance, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott had also been member of the CFCC. Following the report, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Jim Nicholson, denounced the CFC for holding racist and nationalist views and demanded that Lott formally denounce the organization. Although the CFC, Lott refused to denounce the organization, he stated he had resigned his membership. See how they do it? Subsequently, Nicholson demanded Lott denounce his former segregation views following a speech he gave at Senator Strom Thurmond's birthday diner when he applauded the senator's 1948 Dixiecrat presidential campaign. So he reached way back to 1948 to the Dixiecrats, which were before Democrats, I believe, if I remember correctly. Following the controversy of Nicholson's demands initiated, Lott apologized for his past support for segregation, his past association, his remarks at Thurman's birthday that caused him lost support from a number of important conservatives, not least Thurman. This is before they was fully exposed. Now, this, you know how anytime when something's starting to get exposed, you know, other members are not in clue about what's going on, what the plan is, so they think you became traitor, so they denounce you. You see, until later on they can all get together and say, oh, okay, it was a ploy, it was a tactic. And that's all that was right here. All right. Consequently, Lott resigned his post as Senate Minority Leader. Okay, now we're getting to up to date now. Here, watch this. Similarly, former House Minority Leader Dick Gifford also attended an event of the organization's St. Louis predecessor, the Metro South Citizens Council, shortly before the name was changed in the mid-1980s. And that's what these people do. When the name come out as exposed, they change the name. People start saying that they disband themselves from the old name, and then they get a new name, and then it's usual business. So that's what they do. They get rid of the old name. In the public, they say we're not part of it. But then, when they come back from under a new name, you know, here we go again. This was an event he is repeatedly referred to as a mistake. I bet you it was a mistake. In 1993, now we get into the 90s, Mike Huckabee, then the Lieutenant Governor of Arkansas, agreed to speak at the COFCC's National Convention in Memphis. Now, why is that a big deal? Because here you got a guy that said that they had stepped away from the old name, but here you got to remember, COFCC is the new name. So why is he speaking at the National Convention in Memphis? See? Tennessee, in his pursuit of the governorship of Arkansas, by the time of the COCC convention, Huckabee was unable to leave Arkansas. Instead, he sent a videotape speech, which was viewed, hold on. That was event repeatedly referred to. Okay, mistake. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, there it is. Which was viewed and extremely well received by the audience. Okay. According to the COCC newsletter, so they have a newsletter. However, following the secession election in April 1994, okay, we understand that. Okay, so what I'm pointing out to you here, and there's a lot of them. I mean, we can go on all day. Okay, it's so many. It's so many of them. Look, Governor of Arkansas. Let's see somebody else. Senator Jesse Holmes. I'm just going to put the names there, okay? Now we know what we're talking about. We're talking about racism in the government. Senator Jesse Helms, okay? These are the people that are in control. Lieutenant Governor of Arkansas. Let's see. H. Guy Hunt of Alabama and Kirk Forrest of Mississippi, as well as Senator Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, remain active members and or gave speeches to the organization. Okay, now we're on the 2000s. 2000s. So this is before Trump. Where do you think his base come from? Local politicians who appeared at COCC events. Okay, so we got this. Look at this. 38 federal, state, and local politicians who appeared at COCC events. That's a lot. Okay, and that was between 2000 and 2004. Now, what you think? This is 2017. You think it's still going on? Don't worry, I'm going to give you their website, as I always do. I'm going to give you the website, their website. You can start going through their literature and through their material. I'm going to point out one of these things, because one of these literatures is specific. I have to point out, because it is a book that is used by police officers to determine the statistics of crime rates, and why, you know, basically, well, I should say how the system is operating using these statistics. Hold on for a second. We're gonna get on in a second to the other part of what I gotta say. Following politicians are members or have spoken at the meetings: Senator Trent. Let's put their names out. Trent Lott, Mississippi Governor Haley Baylor, Mississippi State Senators Gary Jackson, Dean Kirby, several Mississippi, question in Mississippi gonna be in there. State representatives. People who have also spoken at COCC meetings include ex-governors Guy Hunt of Alabama and Kirk Forrest of Mississippi. U.S. Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi is said to have attended as well. Where's the ones that I saw that's in like Florida, and they're on here, like Florida, St. Louis, Washington. I mean, okay. Indiana. Let's see. Indiana. Okay, well. Non-European. Samuel T. Francis. Okay, so basically, you know now you know who, watch this. The mass murderer Dylan Roof searched the internet for information on black on white crime. And the first website he found was the COCC website. Yeah, your government. Okay? Where they get all this. Dylan Roof went up in the church, shot all them brothers and sisters. That's the information he was surfing from. And this now is why you saw the police take this shaitan to McDonald's. Okay? Because more than likely he was sent by the government. You know, he was what we call a torpedo. Call it that. He's a torpedo. He's not official, but he's official. He's anointed. Okay. He cited his portrayal of black on white murders as something that radically changed him. I have attacked, but that Roof has some legitimate grievance against black people. An additional statement from Earl Holt. 3. Okay. So now you know what Dylan Roof was going off of. Alright. Don't excuse him. They don't excuse him at all. So, that's their name. You want to know whose Trump base is? There it is right there. You want to know how the white supremacists interconnect against anti-Islam, these groups? You can find Bridget. You can find Bridget. This is your government. These are not just some backwoods people. I mean, some of them could be. They came from that life. Okay? Council of Conservative Citizens. That's your George Bush. Okay? And don't be fooled by the word conservatives, because there's other groups involved with them. Collaborators who are not even conservative. American White Supremacist Organization. Paleo-conservative causes. Variety of conservatism. Back in the old days, former leaders of the segregation citizens councils of America, you know, the ones against Malcolm, the ones against Martin, the ones, you know, going back in those days. So if you ever thought that the old days had died out and they just simply disappeared, and why we got all this stuff coming to the forefront, it's because they've been hiding. They've been around. Founded by Bob Patterson, which is commonly referred to as the White Citizens Council. Its statement principle says that they oppose all forms to mix the races of mankind. The organization is headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. Its president is Earl Holt, while Jared Taylor is the group spokesman, and Paul Fromm is its international director. So you know they're going to have some anti-Islam on them if it's something international. Right? Now, let's get into my main part, because that wasn't even my main part. This is, we're going to go to, hold on. So, you know, go look their name up, Council of Conservative Citizens. I'm going to give you a website also that they are connected to, which are the backbone of who writes statistics or takes the statistics, take them out of context, even scientific racism. If you hear arguments like this, I'm going to give you a key words. Arguments that white people make, such as blacks are more prone to crime. They'll leave the one part out that says genetically. Genetically, supposedly, we're more prone to crime. They'll talk about the crime rate. They'll talk about the drugs. And you're thinking to yourself, hold on, who put the drugs up in there? Did we just skip something in history? You know? But it seems like they have this amnesia. Is because there's a group who is relying on a new generation of whites who... okay, let me point something out to you that we know about. Isn't it weird that when you're arguing with whites, or when you usually try to prove your point to whites, it seems like they're like, yeah, but that happened back then. You know, what about now? What about the crimes and blah, 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 blah. And they're making these new arguments, and they don't seem to understand how what's happening now connects to back then. That's because what they do is they turn around and say, well, that was back then. What about now? Right? And they seem like that they don't want to connect the two. And that's because what's happened is when these groups right here reform themselves, they rely on a new generation that is not aware of what the past generation did. And so they bring up new issues to support their racism. Like before, their arguments wasn't that blacks were criminals. I mean, like their arguments wasn't that we were drug addicts or drug dealers. That was not the main perception of a black person. You know, but if you listen to these new white supremacists, I'm talking about the youngsters, that's the first thing they'll bring out. Oh, the crime in the city and the drug dealing and this and that has to go. And black people are more prone to do these things than whites. And you're thinking to yourself, well, hold on, who brought the drugs up in here? But they don't never mention that. It's like it's rubbed out of their brain. Because the first stage is denial. They're like, well, that happened in the past, or you know, that really didn't happen like that. These organizations put that inside their literature, and then they capitalize off of the situation now, but they don't go into how it started. They completely block that out, and they just focus on what's happening now. You know, black areas are crime ridden, and they'll go off of that. And then they'll make their racist propaganda, you know, the case or whatever. So that's what these politicians are doing. These Council of Conservative Citizens, that's the type of mess they're putting out there. These same peoples that was back in the day, that were the ones responsible for all that racist stuff, the lynchings and the hangings and the killings and the beatings, they're today making literature that doesn't even focus on what happened then, as if it didn't happen, but then they turn around and focus on the drugs and the gangs and stuff like that, and use that as a platform to teach against blacks why the new white racists should hate blacks. So these people are crooked through and through. They know what they're doing. Right? So, okay. Let's go to something. Here we go. Now we up to date. Now we into the 2000s. The American Renaissance. That right there is their new name. Okay? They still conservative COCC, but this their new name, and guess what they got? We're gonna go back to, well, before I go over there, this is actually their website. So I'm not on no report. I'm actually on the white supremacist site. That's what it's called. Okay? Now look at these books right here. Let me show you something. Look at these books right here, man. Look at SubhanAllah. Just look. This is the book I want to get. This is the book I'm going to show you. Try not to click off it. The Color of Crime. You see that? This is what Donald Trump going off of. This is what your politicians going off of. When they talk about statistics of crime, revised in 2016 edition. This edition goes back, what was the 1990, but they revised it, I think 1990. Don't quote me on that part. But this is a 2016. Yes, brother Rashida Kill Johnson. This is the manual right here that police officers use. This is the statistic thing that you see when they talk about the statistics, say blah 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 blah, and it be senators and it be mayors and it be government officials. This right here is the foundation, or one of the foundational books that they use. Now in this you will find where they say now this is actually a section of the old group, the Council of Conservative Citizens. This is actually a branch of them, the American Renaissance. And what the American Renaissance is about publishing articles. They're basically the intellectual backbone of the political, or the politicians, white supremacist groups that are in power. Okay, they write the concepts down, they write the statistics down, even uses some scientific terminologies, right? And they push that out to the public. Okay, so this is actually the listen. Here's what I want. If you're somebody out there that's a good debater, if you're somebody out there that's of the intellect, you're good with statistics, you're good with that. We need somebody or a group to rise up that will combat these type of concepts right here, because it's these statistics and concepts that the white supremacists rely off of. These are the arguments basically that they will use. Okay, look at that Mexican migration guide. Watch this. Look how they trailing us. Anti-white rap lyrics, huh? What a book, right? Yeah, we got some heavy hitting stuff today. Look at that. These ain't no old outdated stuff. This is some update Hispanics, a statistical portrait. The Color of Crime. Let's click into this. Matter of fact, I think I got. These are the archives, who we are, our issues, how to use this site. Look at that, how to use this site. Activist corner. They activists, right? You know, the ones that be on the news talking to you. Ann Coulter. What's that? Rush Limbaugh. Who's some other people on the news that you be hearing from? That be telling you statistics this and statistics that. Okay? Hold on for a second. Let me see this thing. Okay, I think I got this thing right. All right. So I do. So we're going to click into this real quick. Matter of fact, I'm going to go over like this. There we go. So I already had it up. See? Right there. So let's see what they do, what they talking about. Right now you're getting into why okay, major findings. The evidence suggests that if there is police racial bias in arrests, it is negligible. What? Victim and witness surveys show that police arrest violent criminals in close proportion to the rates at which criminals of different race, commit violent crimes. So we're dealing, we're not just dealing with, see, this is the manuals that the white supremacists use. You see that date? 1993, 2015. Okay? So we're not dealing with some old, ran out, backwater. Hey! Let's see. You know, you can always get the PDF version or script, whichever one you may be on. Let's go over here. Crime rates. Watch this. There are dramatic race differences in crime rates. Asians have the lowest rates, followed by whites, then Hispanics. Blacks have notably high crime rates. This pattern holds true for virtually all crime categories for virtually all age groups. You see that? In 2013, blacks were 6 times more likely than non-blacks to commit murder, and 12 times more likely to murder someone of another race than to be murdered by someone of another race. So, you see what is happening here to set up, well, I'm going to get into that later. Because, you know, you just saw a contradiction there on what they usually teach. What they usually teach is blacks kill each other more, right? That's what they teach. But now all of a sudden, it's 2013. Blacks were 6 times more likely than a non-black to commit murder and 12 times more likely to murder someone of another race than to be murdered by someone of another race. I thought we kill each other. I thought we kill each other all the time. We more likely to kill each other than kill another race, right? But according to this journal, that's not what they're teaching. You see, this is updated stuff. They update it. Because, see, something has changed out there. This is, you got to remember, this is, you know, they're taking statistics in the 2000s now. So something has changed. This says in 2013. So something has changed. They're saying that now we're killing other races more than we're killing each other, basically. When you know how to read what they're talking about. Interracial crime. In 2013, approximately 660,000 crimes of interracial violence that involve blacks and whites. Blacks were the perpetrators 85% of the time. This meant a black person was 27 times more likely to attack a white person than vice versa. A Hispanic was 8 times more likely to attack a white person than vice versa. Urban centers, 2014, New York City. A black was 31 times more likely than a white to be arrested for murder, and a Hispanic was 12.4 times more likely for the crime of shooting, defined as firing a bullet that hits. Police shootings. So we're into the 2000s. Okay. 2015, a black person was 2.45 times more likely than a white person to be shot and killed by the police. So letting you know, we're more likely on our target, right? The statistics is way higher than that, though. A Hispanic person was 1.21 times more likely. These figures are well within what would be expected given race differences in crime rates and likelihood to resist arrest. Okay? In 2015, police killing of blacks accounted for approximately 4% of homicides of blacks. Police killings of unarmed blacks accounted for approximately 0.6% of homicides of blacks. The overwhelming majority of black homicide victims, 93% from 1980 to 2008, were killed by blacks. Now, check this out. See, you see how they say unarmed blacks? What's the percentage they give? That's why, you know, this partially white people. Now imagine you're a white person in the suburbs who hardly talks to blacks anyway, And you keep seeing all this stuff on TV about unarmed blacks being killed. But when you go to the journal, right? When you go over here to this journal right here and you look it up, look, in 2015, police killings of blacks accounted for approximately 4% of homicide of blacks. 4%. That's a lie. See? That's a lie. Police killings of unarmed blacks accounted for approximately 0.6% of homicides of blacks. Now, is that a lie or what? You see? It's way more than 0.6% of blacks being killed by police unarmed. So, see, these are the journals that these people read, though. You're not going to be able to get justice from them, is what I'm saying. These are your listen, these are your politicians. These are your senators. These are your mayors. These are your government officials who are putting this garbage out. Who are going, and if they're not putting it, by putting this garbage out, what I mean is they're going to these speeches, to these groups, and these groups are writing these statistics up for them. There is a color of crime, according to them. But when the police is trained, they don't speak it though, the color of crime. You understand what I'm saying? They'll read it, but they ain't gonna speak it about the color of crime. They're not gonna tell you, well, according to us, crime has a color. Nowadays they're getting a little bit more bolder. Okay? All right? So this is New Century Foundation, meaning this is the now and date. This is not the old past 1950s, 1940s, 1930s white supremacist groups. This is up to date. These are reports they're giving now. Differences in crime rates by race. Bias in the justice system and interracial crime, first published as a monograph in 1999 and updated and expanded in 2005. The 2016 edition of The Color of Crime is available in print from our store or online as a standard web page or a PDF download. Here is, now, you remember that name? Where you see that name? Listen. Where you see that name before? Jared Taylor, president of New Century Foundation, which is this website, which is doing these major findings. You remember where you seen that name at? Let me show you. Let me show you real quick. Council of Conservative Citizens. Oh, they done came now. Whole bunch. I'm gonna have to get out of here soon. The organization is headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. Its president is Earl Hopewell. Jared Taylor is the group's spokesman. That Jared Taylor. Council of Conservative Citizens. That's your mayors, your senators, remember? That group. Color Crime book. Major findings. Race, Crime, and Justice in America. 2016. The revised edition. By Edwin S. Rubinstein. That's a Jew. Now how you a white supremacist for Aryans and you're a Jew? Now we got some Zionist connection going on. Now you're starting to see to link it. New Century Foundation. Who's the president of that? What was his name? Here is a video presentation of Jared Taylor, president of the New Century Foundation, presenting some reports, key findings. Okay? So, make no mistake about this. All right? This is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with Trump. With the immigration issues, you're dealing with the anti-Islam, you're dealing with targeting blacks. You see, we have the highest rate. You know, it's all there. That's how it's all tied in. You know, so if you out there and you're black and you have to be black caucuses, and you know all these senators and all these mayors and all these politicians that are racist, and they putting out these statistics, and the police go off these statistics, you know it's racism. Don't tell me you're not aiming for my people. And if you're a Muslim out there, you have to understand your Islam through the context of the society that you're dwelling in and up under what you're dwelling in. Okay? You cannot apply 7th century Arabia, social, societal norms or issues to this right here. You can find similarities in the time of Jahiliyyah, but what I'm saying is, right now you're living up, put it like this, you're living up under a white supremacist Quraysh. Okay? Put it like, if you wanted to call it something like that. Right? But all of them was Arabs, really, for the main part, and they all spoke the same language. You're dealing with another people who's above you, and I don't mean above you in the sense that they're above you as far as, people-wise is concerned, as far as nobility and things of that nature, but above you as far as position. All right? And so this is an uphill battle, man. SubhanAllah, this is an uphill battle. All the way through and through, you know. So Trump is just the actual outright expression of what they've been doing. That's all it is. It's a green light. That's all it is. They hid themselves. They reformed. We got at them in the 1960s. We started challenging them. And what happened was we started shaking the economics up. We started shaking the political platform up. We had the social society shook up. So they said, you know what we need to do? We need to distance ourselves from the organization, disband the old names that we go by, pretend as if we distance ourselves for a while, allow them to get certain things, certain arguments that they're making, give them concessions here and there, but keep our guys, meetings, having meetings and writing up policies and plans for when we can get full control again under a new generation that is not all the way aware. And that's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now. So the old heads came back out, reshaped themselves, reformed themselves. They got the new white supremacists going on. And guess what they did? Guess what the setup was? See, a lot of people talk about it, but they don't understand how the game was played. I'm going to tell you how the game was played. The first step that they did when we were shaking them up in the 1960s, in the 1970s, what did they do? They put the drugs in the community. But by the time that they put the drugs in the community, they had started disbanding themselves from membership of these groups. So it didn't look like you could point to specific white supremacist groups that were doing this, because they started giving us concessions on certain things. But then they went back to the chalkboard and meetings and stuff, and they said, okay, this is the 1960s, 1970. By the 1990s, we should be back up and running our policy, our real policies and our real programs. And by the 2000s, we should be back in full effect. So they've been planning this the whole time. So when the drugs got put into the community, they started ripping the community apart, and the banging started getting real heavy. That's when these old heads went to the new white supremacist groups that were coming up, and they started blaming our people for the drugs and for the gangs and stuff. They started actually blaming us for being the actual ones who founded the stuff. Not that we were participating in it, but that we actually were the main problem. And so they started propagating that as part of their campaign to come back against us. Because at any point in time, when you start talking to a lot of these white supremacists, or really you argue with them, the first thing that they will bring up is black on black crime and crime within the inner city. The first thing they go to is the crime and the drugs. Never mind how the drugs got in there. You see? So that was the main ploy that they was going to use later on. Before they introduced them drugs, you best believe they sat over there and counseled. And I'm going to show you that that's the truth. Remember in the movie, it's the movie about the Black Panthers and J. Edgar Hoover. Remember how he had his government officials go over there to somewhere in South America, meeting with the drug cartels to introduce the drugs into the black community? See, what they're telling you is, in order to stop us, in order to neutralize us, they have to bring the drugs in. Well, we know that, but we're thinking in order to stop the Black Power movements or the Civil Rights movement, they had to bring the drugs in. That's only partially true. Because we was causing so much of an economic problem and a political problem, they said, nah, we don't need to neutralize these black organizations. We need to neutralize their people. And by neutralize, what it means, we need to get a grip, because our power on certain levels is slipping. So we need to put these drugs in here, because we know what these drugs is going to do. And we'll sit back and wait and let it cause havoc. And then when we come back out on our platform, that is the first thing that we would blame the new generations for, is the drugs and gang violence. That will be our platform to recruiting new white supremacy. Because old white supremacy in our religious ideology is not working no more. It's not having that much of an effect. You see? So we need another angle to get a grip. So what they did, they disbanded themselves from the old names, acting like they distanced themselves, and they went underground. They were still politicians, a lot of them, but they had to make certain concessions because of the pressure we were putting on them on all different levels. So they decided we're going to come back out with a new generation. We'll write that into a policy. We'll wait, couple generations, and our policy will still be on the books, and then we'll put it in full force. So when you get a chance, I gave you some names of people. I guess I'll play a little video, some stuff that, but here's his name again: Jared Taylor. Jared Taylor. He's the one. He's behind all that right there. He's like the ideological guy where all these white supremacists argue with. Hold on, let me clear this quick. Okay, these are his article. America is not a nation of immigrants. White men stole it all. Solution: deny them the right to vote. So they're telling you different steps and stages of what to do. Fighting back against left-wing censorship. Institutional racism, another sorry excuse. See how they do it? Now, how are you going to sit there and say institutional racism, another sorry excuse, when you part of the institutional racism? See, it's the game that they play. It's just game that they play. Even on people that follow certain white supremacist concepts. Because it gives them the justification and pretension to continue on doing what they're doing. What the founders really meant and thought about race. Racial consciousness is as old as the Republic. Okay, if you're saying that, Jared Taylor, if you're saying racial consciousness is as old as the Republic, then how can you up here in the other article say institutional racism, another sorry excuse? One thing about these guys, if you dig deep into their stuff, you will find so many contradictions in their arguments. White men stole it all. Well, did you? Did you? Are you denying that? Well, I mean, you had to if you got racial consciousness is as old as the Republic. Pretty sure this wasn't a republic at first. And if you had institutional racism, another sorry excuse, well, how come that's not an excuse? When you the one, writing the statistics and got people out there doing all type of crazy stuff on a racial level. America is not a nation of immigrants. Why won't whites defend themselves? You stole America from the Indians. Another anti-white double standard. See? White hand Trump a great victory. Now you know that who's in Trump, who Trump is for, right? You've been knowing it, but I'm showing you the solid proof. Okay? Showing you the solid proof. I'm showing you the organizations. These are a bunch of conservatives. These are a bunch of politicians. These are a bunch of senators. Here's their website. Why blacks riot? It's not because of racism or police brutality. You know what they're going to say? They're going to say it's in our genes. Because I've read some of his things. Now, to let you know that these books that are written are not old, look at the dates. Huh? Man, oh man, oh man. Why blacks riot? It's not because of racism or police brutality. September 30, 2016. Up to date. See that? That's what your police is going off of. That's why when some of our people be arguing with the police, and they was like, man, why? How you think I feel? You coming up in my neighborhood and you doing this and you doing that, and you over here doing this and that. Man, they ain't hearing that because they already have a political, social, and even some of them religious understanding of the situation that they're involved in. See, the problem with our people is you thinking when they come, that's just some guy coming, and so you're gonna explain your case to him, and you're gonna try to, talk about the situation and try to show who was right and wrong. In his head, it's this stuff that's going on as he's dealing with you. Why blacks riot? It's not because of racism and police brutality. So as soon as you start talking about how you think I feel when you guys come over here and you do this and you do that, you guys are brutalizing us, man. You guys are being raped. They're not hearing that because this is what they're hearing. Jared Taylor. I mean, we don't have no choice. We're in a corner. We're backed up in the corner. We're against, put it like this, we're against the same people that our ancestors was against. Put it like that. These are the people from the 60s and the 50s and the 20s, and they're coming out, and they're coming out full force in 2000s. Hold on, let that get focused real quick. They're coming out in the 2016s, 2017s. Okay? They not, it's an all or none now. This is how they're looking at it. Look, it's going back 2015, 2014. Okay? 2013. Face to face with race. Okay? This is what you're dealing with. Now watch this. Watch this. You ready for the shock? You want me to show why even some of these white supremacists that you argue with, it seems like they don't understand that they did stuff bad in the past, and they always point a finger at you, and you're like, man, how could you even say something like that? Man, how can the KKK even ever think that they got a moral right to call somebody racist? You ever thought of that? How can this Klansman say that blacks are equally as racist? You being reverse race. That stupid stuff that they say. You just looking at them like, man, dude, do you know any history? And you be looking at them like, are you serious? I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you why right now. Erasing our racist past. How to control the future. That's one of his books. So everything that you're arguing against white supremacy about the past, to the modern day white supremacists, they're erasing it. Because these are the very people who participated in it. So that stuff that you're arguing about the 1960s and the 1950s, they're erasing it in all white supremacist circles. And now what they're focusing on, they're starting from up until now. So they're saying as soon as they argue against you, that's why they come straight out and argue against drugs, crime. That's the new the criminal thing, that was already there before, but it was different. They used to call us rebels. Okay, outlaws. because we weren't going by the slavery codes. We had riots against them. So they've always called us a criminal. But now they're using it. But what happened was we said, yeah, we was being outlaws. But the thing about it is your policy weren't just. Your laws were wrong. Your laws were racist. So when we started shaking things up in the 1960s and 50s, they said, man, we got to reform stuff. We got to, these arguments, they're making too good of arguments against our system. So we have to come in another angle. How are we going to do it? And old faggot J. A. Hoover, came up with the idea. He said, let's put drugs in the community. And let's distance ourselves from, when I say J. Edgar Hoover, I mean people like him too. Let's distance ourselves from the old names. Let's go underground, have new names. Let's meet. Let the drugs take effect. We know what's going to happen. And then when the drugs took an effect, we'll come out and use that as our platform. And that's what they're doing today. Okay? So that's why a white supremacist, when he first argue with you, the first thing he go to is now and day. He don't go to what happened in the 1930s and 20s. And if you try to tell him something about that, he has some excuse about it, because some of them aren't even made to focus on that. You see? And when you try to focus him on that, he'll say, yeah, you guys are just making excuses for something that, maybe might have had, maybe there were some things that went overboard, but everybody's had slaves though before, stuff like that. They'll make arguments like that. But what about the drugs? And you're thinking to yourself, yeah, what about the drugs? Who put them in here? They're like, well, according to statistics, they'll automatically go to statistics. That book I just showed you, automatically go to statistics. Look at this. Race differences in intelligence. Now, the white supremacist who uses this branch of argument, he will say that blacks have a little small part in their brain. Blacks have smaller parts in their brain. That's why they're less intelligent. And whites have bigger heads, so they're more intelligent. They use a scientific article that came out, and they read it out of context that says that blacks are more closer to basically the primates or something like that. Well, they say blacks, but it actually says humans. Humans are more closer to primates, and then they'll say, well, now there's Caucasians. Blacks are though, right? Blacks have this small part in their head, and that's why they're not as intelligent, right? And whites have a bigger head, so they're more intelligent. That's actually the arguments they use, right? So this is that's why they use them argument, race differences in intelligence, right? So if you're making good arguments against them, income inequality, the debate ignores race. What Obama would never tell you. So I mean, these two right here, these two main ones, race differences in intelligence and erasing our racist past, and the one the color of crime, you combine those three books together and you got your modern day white supremacist groups and what they rely on. Okay? I guess I'm gonna click in. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see what type of stuff they talk. Okay, there it is. The Color of Crime. Those three books. Okay. Jared Taylor introduces the latest update of classic report. So they market it as a report. And your politician is going to get this and read this. Even your liberal one who says he's not racist, in the back of their head, they read this stuff. And then they want to turn around and say, look, Black Lives Matters, historical and lies, hysteria and lies. Well, you're going to call it hysteria and lies if you're involved in this right here, erasing our racist past, how to control the future. If you're involved in teaching that, well, of course you're going to think Black Lives Matter is just hysteria and lies. Because part of Black Lives Matter, and I ain't talking about just specifically the organization, I'm talking about just us as a people in general. Part of Black Lives Matter is dealing with our history. So if he's writing against erasing our racist past, how to control the future, if he's writing this, how to erase that from even white Americans' mind frame, And then we come out Black Lives Matter, and we're always quoting something that happened in the past, and then we're quoting something that the police is doing, and they think that color has a crime has a color. You're never going to get through to these people, because number one, they erase the past from their minds. So when you try to argue from the past, they're like, what the hell is you talking about? What are you talking about? And then what they're going to do is they're going to automatically say, yeah, you're talking about something about the past, but what about crime now? And then when they say that to you, they're thinking that crime has a color. And so then they're thinking that you're just making an excuse. It's just hysteria and lies. So they got a cold system going on here, and they've been putting this under wraps for a while. They got the head of us for a while. A lot of stuff that the black power or black conscious community's talking about, they ain't even scratched the surface of combating these ideologies. Not even the surface. They still stuck about, are we Kemetic? Are we this? Are we that? Am I more? What's my status? I follow just traditional Islam? The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was the last prophet. This is what we stuck at. And every day we step out their house, we got to deal with the color of crime though. Every day we step out our house, we got to deal with report, demolish, hand up, don't shoot stuff. Race and drug arrests. Police arrest drug takers regardless of race. Trying to equalize it. What use is Islam? It doesn't belong in the West. You see that? If you don't think black and Islam is linked to the struggle up in this country, you're stupid, because your white supremacist oppressor is telling you. We ain't got no time to sit and argue about, I'm Kemetic. Man, we linked. Okay? The same guy that's writing against Islam, these white supremacists coming out against Islam, the KKK, and the white supremacist groups, they're aiming for Islam. And at the same time, they're trying to erase their past, and they're going against our people. Okay? So being black and being Muslim hey, some people don't like it joined, but it's joined, because that's what the oppressor's aiming at. Now, can you show me anywhere on this? And this is not a slight at nobody, so I don't want nobody to think of this. Can you show me anywhere on here where they're aiming at Kemetic? Can we get that on here? Where they're aimed at Kemetic? Where they saying, not now they mentioned Silicon Valley, but they ain't say nothing about no Nile Valley. Okay? They aiming at some Silicon Valley, but they not aiming at no Nile Valley. They are aimed at Islam though. Okay? They aimed at our people. Mob rule in Baltimore, remember that? Say they're not even focused on what you're talking about. If it ain't about the color of crime, okay? If you bring up Islam, especially now, for those of you who don't see the connection, I'm gonna tell you, if you're black and you're a Muslim, and especially if you're conscious, if you want to use that word, of what's going on, you're a target. Okay? You're a target. So, it's gonna come down to something. I don't even need to mention it on here, right? You need to get your family ready. It's not just a Trump issue. Okay? Even if he was to go away, you got all these others here still. Okay, now watch this. Now this guy right here, I'm going to show you the stupidity. I'm going to pick a little bit apart maybe of what this guy's saying. Okay, now look how they come. Watch this. Nice, huh? Look at that.
Hello, I'm Jared Taylor.
Jared Taylor.
Of American Renaissance. I'm sure you've often heard that diversity is one of America's great strengths. Many people even say that diversity is our greatest strength. And when people talk about diversity, they may be thinking of religion, language, and culture. But the main thing they have in mind is race. This becomes clear if you imagine a university where the students were from all the different countries of Europe. Most people would say the campus wasn't really diverse.
Okay, stop quick. Before I continue, my phone getting hot, so I'm going to have to probably let this rest for a second. Okay, so you know this Jared Taylor, okay, the one that's been writing that. These are your people, your politicians, and your government, white supremacists, Donald Trumpy Trump, you know, Frappy Trump, you know, the people that he listened to, okay, the statistic guy, you know, so I mean, one of the guys, and this is the type of stuff they watch behind closed door, basically. But because it's becoming more outright, people that like me, for example, one of my, I won't call it a specialty, but it's one of the main things I do. One of the main things I do is I dig into white supremacist organizations, and I dig into their websites. I go into the videos. I also, well, I ain't gonna say that part, but I got some fake accounts even in their stuff that you're not allowed to get into. Okay. And so, I mean, it gets real deep, man. SubhanAllah, it gets so deep that, we're in a bad situation. We're in a bad situation. You know, I mean, even when you're in the deen, we're in a bad situation because the way we view our deen is packaged to us from another society's standpoint, and we're not dealing with our deen with the society standpoint that we're in. You know, Islam is not confined to a specific society standpoint. Islam is able to go into any society standpoint and deal with the issues that are in that standpoint. But first, before you could ever know how to deal with it, you got to know who the players are. In any game, you got to know who the players are, you know, and what they stand on, so you know how you can go at that. Just like in the Battle of Uhud, you know, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had the archer stand on top of the hill because he knew the directions that people would come when they came to fight. And he said, don't remove yourself from this post. Well, the Prophet ﷺ understood the society, the situation that he was in. So when you can understand the situation that you're in, you can devise the right type of strategy. If you don't know the situation you're in, who the key players are. For example, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ knew Khalid ibn Walid. He knew Abu Sufyan. He knew each characters and what they could do in the battle, and how they could come, and what they were capable of, the strengths and the weaknesses, so he could make an effective plan against whoever was fighting against the Muslims at that time. You have to also know who specific people are. I would say even know where they live at. That's very important. Know who the specific people are, know what their standpoint is, and know how to combat and go against it. But you can't know how to go against it until you know what their standpoint is. So that takes, though, going where they at. But if they concealing their information, see, concealing of information has always been the key to any real success, of any power, you know. And to dig that information up has also always been the success to being able to form a strategy against it. This is why we're told certain information you don't reveal out there. This is why the statement came out, you know, loose lips sink ships. You don't give all your information. One thing about black people, I need for us to stop being a show and tell people. Stop talking about and showing what you got all the time, man. You gotta, we done got into that mentality because as entertainment type stuff. But a lot of people don't understand that entertaining is to give information up. Giving information up means a person can profile you. When a person can profile you, they got how they can come at you. When a person knows how to come at you, they can form a strategy. These people always want to profile us, and they always want to form a strategy against us, and it's because of based upon what information comes out of our mouth. Now, right here today, I'm sitting here telling you about this stuff, but guess what information I'm giving them when I'm talking? By me talking and telling you this, it's in a way dangerous, because they're like, okay, this guy is aware of how we're coming. It's not superficial how we coming. It's not about like, okay, the police beat some guy up on the street corner and they racist and you're doing a report on that. Although that's good to know. They're looking at how they would look at it as like, okay, this guy's actually able to get into our material. He's actually able to dissect it, and he's actually he's actually able to connect key points and show in a strategy format how we're coming at people. So to them, that's a sort of danger, right? Because, and I need a lot of us to start digging into these people's information, finding out how they come and deconstructing their ideologies. If you don't want, and I'm not directing it at these politicians or mayors, so let me say that right off the bat, because they got a little technical law thing that they got going on. So I'm not saying directly at these politicians or anything like that, physically, go fight them, these specific persons. I'm saying fight white supremacy though. I'm saying fight the ideology. I'm saying fight people that come at you for violence. You tear them apart. You know what I'm saying? And if you got to hunt somebody down, you can do that too. But I'm just not putting no specific names out there. Right? So, look, we really got to get on what these people about. You see all them books behind him? Those are instruments that are used to control minds. Now, you probably didn't notice this, but you see that skull right there? You see that skull? That boy got a skull. He got a skull in his house, man. By them books. Woo, you dealing with some cold people. You dealing with some cold people. Alright, so, but I got 15% left on this phone. I think I exposed, a little bit something, inshallah. But let's hear what he got to say.
All the students would be white. So when people talk about diversity being a great strength for America, they mean that this is a wonderful country because people of different races live here. But is racial diversity really a source of strength? Actually, it's not. Diversity, not just of race, but religion, language, culture, etc., is a source of tension and conflict. Just think about the history of race in America.
You see, he's going by his doctrine right now. Think of the history of race in this country. Well, your organization was the organization that was in the 50s, that was in the 40s, that was causing the contention. But to the nowadays white supremacist, who is a new white supremacist, they don't know all of the stuff that was going on. They focus on the crimes, and blacks are genetically criminals by nature. That's the new white supremacist teaching. That's what they're focused on. Either blacks are created to be servants, or blacks are created or are criminals by nature. But he don't talk about in the 1930s how we was, our families were hard-working families. He don't talk about the 1920s. We wasn't into being into prison. It wasn't a cool thing for us to be in prison. So he's a liar. But the modern day, he's teaching his people on a whole, a new level. So let's go ahead and hear what y'all say, huh? Oh, okay. Okay, so look, I'm gonna go to a YouTube clip. Go over here. American Renaissance. Okay? Promoting hatred in America. That's the title YouTube gated. So he ain't even hiding, okay?
Good authority that Richard Nixon was completely convinced by Arthur Jensen's race and IQ studies. But he thought this was something we should IQ.
Oh, okay.
Because if you do, a lot of people will yell at you, and most folks are cowards. But, and this is important, people always have clever ways of justifying their cowardice. Some of them think they're being nice to blacks by keeping mum about IQ. They think that if you tell blacks the truth, they will erupt in fury, maybe burn the place down, or be plunged into self-destructive depression.
This is Donald Trump's guy, you know?
Silly. For most of American history, virtually everyone took it for granted that the average black was not as smart as the average white. Did this mean that blacks in the 1880s or the 1920s were crazed murderers or were paralyzed with self-loathing? No. Blacks had lower crime rates and far lower rates of illegitimacy than they do now. In fact, crime and illegitimacy really took off in the 1960s, just as the taboos about talking about race and IQ were beginning to harden.
Now, one thing you'll find out about this guy, he contradicts himself. Because in another article, and I'm going to get that article, he says that he wrote, or he had somebody else writing under his columnist, and he mentioned that blacks are criminals by nature, and it derives from their low level of IQ. So the same thing he just said, if somebody tells blacks about their low level of IQ, well, he used that to justify the reason why blacks were criminals by nature. But in this video, because he's trying to make a certain slant and point to arrive at a statement that he want to make, he's now showing that blacks had lesser crime. So that's a good thing. Whenever you find a contradiction like something like that, you snatch that, because you're going to need that to utilize as soon as a person comes with the other ideology that he propagated, that blacks are criminal by nature. You slap them with that fact. You cut this piece of the video up. You slap them with a guy who wrote the same book. You say, well, here's what he said, and here's what the statistics, since you're going by statistics, here's what statistics says about our people. So we're not criminals by nature. So what's the difference? What happened? Okay, so.
My experience, and I have more than you'd think, most blacks are pleased when you are completely honest with them about race. I admit, that wasn't what I expected at first either. I remember, though, the first time I gave a public lecture about race and IQ. It was at Temple University Law School, and it was in the late 1980s. Before I started my talk, I looked out over that audience, and I was dismayed to see that about a third of the people were black. How am I going to bring myself to say these awful things? I thought to myself.
You know you're lying, right?
I'm so cruel. But I braced myself, and I gave my talk.
Well,
there were a few blacks who stormed out in a rage. But the ones who stayed asked questions for more than an hour. They were fascinated by what I had to say about race and IQ, and they weren't insulted at all.
Hold on.
Several came up to me.
So no blacks. So them brothers and sisters was not insulted. What he's trying to tell you is, he told them that their IQ is lesser because they're black, and he's saying that they was fascinated and they was not insulted. You believe that? SubhanAllah. You believe that? So if he came speech and he said, you know, blacks, they have a part in their brain that their brain is smaller, and he's using all these scientific jargons, because that's what they do. They use scientific jargons. It's called scientific racism. And he tells you that you have less intellect because of your brain. You mean to tell me you won't be insulted? I'll be insulted. I mean, I'll debate with you though. I want to see your proof. I got some of their stuff too, so I'm gonna have to bring this out in the next part that I do. I'm gonna have to end this here. But so you've seen the two sites that are connected to each other. I threw some names out there. Go back in the video, go look some names up, look them people up, do some videos on them, whatever you can come up with, you know, whatever information you can come up with. This group, go through their stuff, go through their books, start picking apart everything. All right, because it's the modern white supremacist movement, and this is within the government. Okay, this within the government. So if, and these are the people that are influencing the politicians, and a lot of them are politicians. All right, so you know, and you want to help something without having to, some of you out there physically having to do something on a physical level. You want to prevent something on a physical level. You're not going to prevent it all. You know, this is just, there's an agenda at work. Now notice how he comes off nice. Notice how he comes off as an intellect. Notice how he comes off as he's not going to call this type of guy. He's not going to call you a nigga. He's going to tell you you're less intelligent though. Scientific. But go back in the video if you're not seeing this. I gave the names of all the politicians and the people that were mayors or senators. Do some research on those names. I connected you to the site that they be using, so your politicians be using these sites. These are the sites they go to. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna have to end this. I got some things I got to do. I love all you, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Black Power. We in for a hell of a fight. And also want to Allah bless our people to strive against this white supremacist shayateen, Muslim or non-Muslim, because it shows, you know, the oppression, although it is aimed at Muslims, particularly black Muslims, and it necessarily ain't got to be, you know, Nation Islam or nothing like that. I'm talking about traditional Muslims who are conscious like myself, or just Muslim period. I mean, you know, you've seen the two different platforms what they're aiming at, you know. But the main aim is, you know, it's always black, because it's always, that's the main thing they're worried about. You know, it don't matter what deen you're in. Your presence is they're afraid of it, you know, because they're not, and he mentions it, there's books over there, he mentions how the population of whites is down, and the population of blacks are rising. You know, even with all the killings and stuff, he says our population is just, you know, escalating. So with that, I'm gonna close out. Of course, you know, we're the original Nas that's mentioned in the Quran, the people that was the black mud molded into shape, who was created as Khalifa on this earth. And so that's why they've always had a problem against us, because in order to take the final position in this world, you got to get rid of the original who Allah created as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.